Greetings everyone and welcome to this advanced remote learning tutorial with me. I noticed that quite a few people had signed up to this, which I assumed meant that different people wanted to know about different things, and I didn't want everyone to have to kind of sit through the bits that they weren't interested in to find out the bits that they are. And I also wanted you to be able to spend more time with the bits that you were interested in and spend your time kind of working that out. So I've done this meeting as a YouTube video, and I'll be putting timestamps in the video so you can skip ahead to the bit that you particularly want. But don't do it yet, because I've got I want to talk you through what I'll be covering and hopefully encourage you to check out some bits that you might not have checked out otherwise. There's also a couple of general tips that I do want to share with all of you that will be perhaps using this kind of stuff while if we end up remote learning again. The other reasons why I wanted to put it as a video is it means that if you want to go back to this in the future, like say you watch this video now and then we get locked down in 3 months time and you're like, oh God, how did you do that? You can go back to the video, find the bit that you want, and you can also kind of slow it down and speed it up and even pause the video to see what's going on my screen. Right, so before we kind of start properly, I want to talk you through what I'm going to be covering and give you a couple of tips, general tips. My first general tip is this: update your Zoom and your Teams and whatever else it might be. And when you load up Zoom, if you click at the top here, see mine says SC, so you would say whatever your initials is. If you click there and scroll down, you've got a button here that says check for updates. Click that. For me, it says I'm on the latest version. Press that and it will update it, and it'll probably take about 5 minutes to do so, so do it well before a lesson. This also applies to the school computers as well. I was able to update a couple the other day because that gives you all the latest features. The same goes for Teams. So if I bring some Teams forward here, if you click the St. Mary's logo in the corner, again you've got a button here that says check for updates, and you want to get that up to date as well, because a lot of the cool new features that have only come out fairly recently, because a bit like us, we're learning to teach online, and also these companies are a bit like kind of learning to help us teach online, and so lots of these things are kind of coming out. Plus they're competing with each other, so when Zoom creates something, then Teams kind of goes, hey, we want to do that too, and vice versa. So update your stuff. This is what I'm going to be covering in this video, and by the way, this video is going to be a bit more, I'm not going to be editing it to make it look kind of smooth and stuff. I'm just going to be talking, and if it goes wrong, it goes wrong, and you can just skip ahead or go, oh wow, I'm so glad I'm not in Simon's lessons. But I'm going to leave the bloopers in. So this is what I'm going to be covering. I'm going to put myself down at the bottom here like a small egg. So first of all, I'm going to be talking about Zoom cameras. Some of the new filters that are there, which can be useful or just fun, including how to give yourself a moustache. But more importantly, I'm going to be showing you how to put the PowerPoint behind you on a Zoom call, which I think makes for a really nice presentation. I've been doing it for this kind of thing for ages, using a different piece of software, like a more professional piece of video editing software, but Zoom now has that feature incorporated within it. I'm going to be showing you, talking about breakout rooms, which is how you put students into groups, which when I was doing remote learning lessons live was just brilliant for all year groups really, especially in Key Stage 3 where you've got a slightly larger class. The ability to put them into smaller groups was so useful for all sorts of different tasks, and for encouraging them to interact, and for stopping one or two people from dominating, because when you put them into groups then actually everyone kind of has to get involved. So it's well worth knowing how to do that, even if you never use it. And by the way, breakout rooms will be coming to Teams in the future, but as of the 27th of September, it's only on Zoom at the moment, I believe. I'm going to give you some hints and tips about recording lectures using Teams and Zoom, and why that's important, and about where you can store them, which is really important that you know about, because it's to do with safeguarding. I'm distracting myself by being a slight egg at the bottom. I'm going to show you together mode on Teams. If you don't know about together mode, then definitely watch that bit, because it's quite a cool little idea that Zoom hasn't done before, and I tried it with my year 8s on Friday, and they loved it. It's a bit gimmicky, but it might be useful. So come along and watch that bit of the video if you don't know what that is. It then says a general sharing of ideas. Now, because this is a video rather than a kind of a group session, it might be that we kind of share some general tips on the all-staff teams. If you're not on the all-staff teams, then I think Heidi admins that, or Anna in the office. But speak to me or speak to someone, and that might be a good place for us to exchange ideas. I'm going to briefly talk about Nearpod and how you can use that with a Zoom call. And I'm also, and this is probably my most important, one of my biggest successes for my remote learning lessons. And I will fully admit I screwed up loads of remote learning lessons, as I'm sure most of you guys did, and we kind of muddled our way through, and some things worked and some things didn't. But one of my biggest successes was getting the students to engage more by getting their cameras on. So I'll be talking through how I encouraged them to get their cameras on, why it was useful, what the reaction for parents was and the students were. So I would strongly recommend you watch that bit as well. So if you've never kind of used a timestamp in a YouTube video before, if you scroll down, this is a video I did ages ago, so that there's your slightly younger me. If you scroll down somewhere around here, you see where it says using OneNote in live lessons on this video. There should be a description. There might be an arrow to press to extend it down. But if you look there, you should see the titles of the things I'm covering along with timestamps, which means you can click on them. There should be like little blue numbers. You click on them and it takes you to the bit of the video that you want to watch. Okay, so let's kind of crack on then. I'm just checking this is still recording. It is. Right, so Zoom has incorporated loads of kind of cool camera features. By the way, with the Zoom window, you can always make it bigger and smaller by putting your mouse down to a corner and moving it kind of like that. If you do it on the side, you just get the that kind of angle. But I always like to move them in the corners because then you get you adjust the horizontal and the vertical. And if you come over here where it says stop video, you can always toggle the video or toggle the microphone. But there's also this little arrow here. And if you click that, there's a bit that says choose video filter along with various other bits and bobs. Now, just for fun, if we go into the video filter, you can do such exciting things as put a little award in the corner because you are the #1 teacher from the #1 school. You can have big smiley faces if the children have done so well. You can even kind of tint things and go all sepia if you love cowboys. And then there's other things where you can make yourself quite literally the coolest teacher, the happiest teacher, all this kind of stuff, and socially distanced from your students because computer viruses are a thing. They are a thing. There's also, if you click up here in video options, there's also this thing that says touch up my appearance, which is often on by default. You might have noticed that my skin's a little bit more glowy and my face is a little more blurry than usual. When you see me walk around the school, I'm not blurry. Okay, I'm grumpy, but I'm not blurry, and it puts it on by default. But it's probably not a bad idea, especially if the lighting in your room isn't great, or you just want to make sure that you don't feel that you're kind of appalling. Because sometimes I kind of rock up for a remote learning lesson and I'm kind of stressed. So it's worth kind of having a little look at it, just kind of sliding it up and down as you want. But this one here is good. Adjust for low light is good if you're in maybe a kind of a more of a shadowy part of a room. It's worth kind of playing with these ones and turning it on or off. This one here says mirror my video. So I was going to say you'll notice that I'm holding up a different hand, but you don't know which hand I'm holding. I am currently raising my right hand, but it's appearing on the left. So you can do that. If that makes more sense to you, then you can flip that round. And I prefer doing that because sometimes I like to point at things on the PowerPoint, and I like to be able to kind of go, look, and then not be like, no, it's actually here. So that might be one to kind of fiddle with. The other thing, if you go back into the filters one, which again was by clicking choose video filter, if you click on studio effects, you can now add in various backgrounds and all sorts of other kind of unnecessary things, such as a moustache for November, which is great, or for the fireman of your dreams. You can make your eyebrows slightly thicker, adjust the color. You can't put hair on top of your head, which is obviously disappointing. And you can have some lipstick, whatever you like. You can also disable these for students, or just choose your favorite moustache and apply it to all future meetings. These are the kind of things that they're not necessarily academic, but they can help to make the lesson a bit more fun, or to work as a starter, or whatever. But it's good that you know that they're there, and it's also worth knowing that students perhaps have access to these. And there are also ways you can turn these things on and off in general settings, but ask me if you want to know about them. Right, PowerPoint. Click share screen. I'm sure if you've used Zoom before, you've done this before, and you can share your screen with the students. By the way, if you're planning on sharing any videos or playing any sound files, that's the one you want to tick before you go in. You click share computer sound. But there's a load of other options if you go into advanced and if you go into files. If you go into files, you can share an actual kind of file to put up on the screen. But in advanced, there is now a brand new option called PowerPoint as virtual background. You click on that, You then press share, and it will ask you to choose a PowerPoint. So here's one I did many years ago on collective cabinet responsibility. And what it does is it hopefully removes your background like so and puts you in the corner of your PowerPoint. So now you are a newsreader, which is why you might want to have your video mirrored in a particular direction. If you click on it, you get the little border, so you can put yourself wherever you want. You can also make yourself big, make yourself small, however you want to do it. You can go top left, top right. You can, unfortunately, if it thinks that something is a human, it's going to put it in. So it thinks that my guitar is a human, which is worrying. But at least for once it thinks I am, because often it seems to think I'm in the background. Brilliant, there's my cat. Most of my students during remote learning got very well acquainted with my cat because he used to come and join in most of our lessons, and so now you guys get to experience that as well. Fantastic. So that's how you do it. And then if you click down at the bottom here, you've got this forward and backwards buttons here, and so you can kind of scroll through the PowerPoint and the students can kind of see you in front of it while they kind of look at the PowerPoint. And I personally think it's pretty good. As you can see, I've got a couple of issues with it because the borders of my screen don't quite fit with what I'm trying to kind of do here. So it might be the case that you kind of adjust your camera, zoom in a little bit, zoom out a little bit. I don't know if there's a way to crop it at the moment, but that might be worth looking kind of into it. With this one though, any animations you've got on the PowerPoint, I believe, don't work, and I don't know about things like kind of video files. So it's not a completely normal PowerPoint behind you. It's a version of the PowerPoint which Zoom has kind of linked into its own software. So it might well be that what you'll do is you'll kind of be showing the main bits of the PowerPoint like that, but when you then get to a bit where you want to show a video, you might then go back to share screen and stop sharing the PowerPoint and then go back over to showing an actual kind of screen. There is another way of doing it which involves, if a bit like I'm kind of doing here, if I just stop sharing at the top there, you could always put your own face in the corner and then put a PowerPoint on your own screen and share the whole screen. That also works as well. There's various ways to kind of get what you want. So there you go. That's how you put the PowerPoint behind you on a Zoom call, newsreader style. Tick. How to use breakout rooms, putting pupils into groups on Zoom. Okay, right. Unfortunately, I can't show you exactly how you do it because there's only me in the room here. I'm on my own. But on the positive side, I can link you to a video where I did demonstrate it, and then I will also talk a little bit about how it works and what you do here. So this video here, it was a Zoom guide which I made with Mrs. Taylor and Mrs. Warburton over the summer. And if you go to the 16-minute 30 mark, I demonstrate breakout rooms and how they work, and I put Mrs. Taylor in one room and Mrs. Warburton in the other, and I travel between them. So if you're interested in this and you want to see a full demo of it, click on the video which is now in the description and watch it from 16 minutes 30 for a few minutes before you kind of come back here. It's really cool. But basically, breakout rooms are a way of putting students into groups and then you can kind of visit them. And you should have this option here which says breakout rooms. If you don't see this option here called breakout rooms, you might need to go into your Zoom settings, which would be here. And if you click settings and then click view more settings, it should load up something in your browser. And if you just search for breakout rooms there, you might be able to find it. Speak to me if it's not there. But if this button breakout rooms is here, then you're fine. So you click on breakout rooms and it's going to ask you how many breakout rooms you want. So that's obviously up to you, but you've got to then think mentally, okay, so I've got 20 students. If I make two breakout rooms, then I'm going to have 10 in each. If I make 4, then I'm going to have 5 in each. If I make 20 rooms, then I'm going to have 1 student each, and they're going to be lonely. Although that could actually be useful sometimes. Anyway, and then you've got the options to assign automatically or assign manually. So automatically, it will just throw people around. Assign manually, you will then kind of drag them from one room to another and let participants. Is pretty cool because it lets them choose their own groupings. However, be careful, of course, because we have some students that shouldn't go with other students, and you might get some students that end up kind of on their own, and that would be sad. I tended to use automatic ones and then just maybe tug a few students around if I didn't like what kind of came up. When you press create on the breakout rooms, it will then send them in. No, sorry, it won't yet send them in. You press create and then the rooms will be here. So if I just go back into that for a second, and I'm going to click recreate, and this time I'm going to make 3 rooms. So I've got my 3 rooms, and no one has been assigned to it because I'm the only person here. And if I click assign, it's saying all participants have been assigned, but that's because there are no students here. So go and watch that demo if you actually want to see it. But what's really cool is that when you press open all rooms, the students are then given 60 seconds to go and join the room that they wanted. And I use this with all of year 7 and all of year 8 over lockdown, so they should know how to do it. Of course, they're now year 8 and year 9. But all of the current year 8 and current year 9 should know how to do it. You can also, if you click options here, you can allow participants to choose the room. You can allow participants to return to you at any time, or turn that off and on. I occasionally had some students that couldn't find the button to get into the breakout room, which would be really awkward because basically all of the class would go into their breakout rooms except one girl that would just be sitting here with me in our room. And I'd be like, go to your breakout room. And she'd be like, where's that then? And I'd be like, I don't know, because I can't see your screen. So that's actually quite a useful one to turn on, because then when you press open all rooms, it just kind of gently shoves them into the room that they want. You can also decide if you want. So when you close the breakout rooms, it gives them a timer, but you can choose how long you want that timer to be. So I'll just click open all rooms, and it says here all participants have been invited. You can send a message to everyone. If you press broadcast message to all, you can be like, hey yo, history yo, and that will then send them that message. So for example, I've used that to kind of say, hey, you have 5 minutes left, or I've used it to kind of give a little reminder saying, you should have completed this question by now, or that thing where you put everyone in groups and then realize you forgot to give them a very important piece of information. But the other thing you can do is you can click these join buttons here. So the students go into their rooms, they're getting on with the work, or getting on with the work. That's my cat again. Thank you. Yeah, okay. Yes. Everyone's very excited to meet you. Here we go. This is him. This is how most of my remote learning went over lockdown. You then click join, and then you can go into the breakout room. And as you can see here, it kind of takes you out of the main room and then takes you into that particular room. And it says you are now in the breakout room. So if there were 3 students in here, I would now join them, and I'd be like, hey, what have you done? And they'd be like, we did this, we did that. They don't always notice you join, which is hilarious. So you can just kind of sit there for a couple of minutes watching them doing whatever they're doing. And sometimes they are working so hard and it's amazing, and you feel that little glow inside. And at other times they're talking about, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here, or Celebrity Bake Off, or whatever it might be. And you can kind of rain down hell upon them. And then you've got a button here that says leave room, and there is option. Make sure you don't press leave meeting, otherwise you could just abandon the class. But leave breakout room takes you back to the main session. Occasionally you might get a student that disconnects from the call and has to come back into the Zoom call. So it's good that you keep kind of returning to the main room, because then you might need to manually reassign them to a particular room, and you would do that here by clicking up the breakout room options again and kind of adjusting it there. You can click close all rooms, and you see where I click that, it now says, oh, you probably can't see it because it's just there's a little green message at the top, but it says all participants have been given 60 seconds to leave their breakout rooms, and so eventually they'll kind of join you back in here. It's really cool, it's really powerful, it's actually pretty intuitive, which is nice, and really helps to kind of get that kind of normal classroom feel. And I think I said this in the introduction, but firstly it means that they can do group act. Like I had a group prepare role plays, and one group actually kind of designed a rap, and one group did a puppet show. You can get them to work on a document if you combine the breakout rooms with things like a bit of OneNote, so they're all working together on a particular document, or a bit of reading or something like that. It works really nicely. And it also means that it forces other students to kind of get involved, because if you put them into groups of 3 or 4, they can't really hide in the same way. Because I often found in the remote learning ones that 1 or 2 students would talk and the other ones wouldn't, which again is the other important thing about getting cameras on, which I'll talk to you a little bit about later. Good, my cat is now helpfully climbing up onto the desk, which means it's now going to wobble. You're saying yes, brilliant. Now thank you. Now I can't see the screen. I might just, pop you out there. Go on, off your puppety go. Here we go. I didn't fling him. I placed him out and gave him a little love tap as he went away. Please don't report me to some sort of social services. He's fine, and he will get fed lots later. Right, I think that was that. So that was how to use breakout rooms, putting students into groups on Zoom. Again, you've got the full demo on the other video if you wanted to see that actually kind of live. Right, recording lectures using Teams and Zoom, hints and tips. Okay, right, so a reminder, to protect yourself, you need to be recording the lessons that you do on Zoom or on Teams. Because if something happened, whatever that thing might be, having a recording of it will make sure that you can prove whatever had happened, because there is a recording of whatever has happened. To quote various members of SLT at various points, it can happen here, it can happen to you. Record it. If you record it, you are covered. You record them in Zoom by pressing this big button here that says record, and when you press it, it starts recording. You can pause the recording at any point, you can stop the recording. I mean, you can record lessons so that students can watch them later, but in reality we are recording these more to protect ourselves than we are to kind of create a version of this that students will look back on in a year's time and go, do you remember Mr. Cox's lesson? No. Then watch the video. That's where you do it there. I'm going to give you another tip on Zoom in a second, so I'll come back to that one. On Teams, you know what, I'll close down the Zoom one in a second and show you the one on Teams, but there's also a place there you can record it. But the other thing I'd like to show you on Zoom is that you can, you should ideally, well maybe not ideally, you should not be recording images of students to your own personal drives. Again, for kind of safeguarding reasons, you don't want to be looking at your own drive and having pictures of students on there. So when you can actually say where you want to record to save your recordings. So if I click here, sorry, I did that too quite fast. So here I've got the Zoom kind of options window, and here's the current call I'm in. So if I go back to the Zoom options window, you've got that little cog, and one of the options down the side here is recording. And you can say, where do you want to store your recording at? And if you click the button change here, you can choose where you want to put it. And I've got my St. Mary's OneDrive mapped to my PC, and I made a one here called recorded lessons. And you can click on that, and then you can choose that as the location. And so then it is going to record it to your OneDrive, which is not recording it to your local device. So it covers you from a kind of a legal perspective, and all those kind of things. You can also again in the record options here, wherever it was, there's an option that says choose a location for recorded files when the meeting ends. You can also do it that way, and in fact that one might even be slightly better, because then you can afterwards double check that you are recording it to a OneDrive rather than your own drive. And that would also work if you so that might be a good idea as well. You can add a timestamp, which I think is on the screen. Embed the time and date of the actual meeting into the video recording, and all sorts. The other thing I was going to say about recording was, I can't remember what I was going to say. Let me just pause it while I have a little brain fart. I remember. It's really easy to forget to record your lessons, both on Teams and Zoom. And because ideally what we would do is we would start the meeting, and then we would press the record button, and then we let the kids in. So try and get yourself a routine that goes something along the lines of start the call, whether it's on Zoom, whether it's on Teams, press record, and then start to let the children in. Because think of it another way, if you let the kids in first and then start the recording, firstly, you're going to forget. And secondly, if something happened when the kids were in, but you hadn't pressed record yet, then you're still not covered. So try and get a routine of start the call, press record, let the kids in. Then also, if you go onto the Zoom calendar, onto the Zoom one, that you can actually schedule your meetings on Zoom, which works a bit like the Outlook calendar. And you can also connect it to a Google Calendar or an Outlook calendar, which might be helpful. But here's the really nice bit: if you schedule this just for yourself, if you just you could put it on your own private Outlook or your own private Google Calendar just whenever your lessons are. But if you go into advanced options, you can press this button here that says automatically record the meeting on the local computer. Obviously, then you would have to then make sure that was recording to the OneDrive, but that would then record for you without you having to remember that you were doing it. That sentence was terrible. That was barely even a sentence, but I think you knew what I was going for. You can, if you schedule a meeting and say, yes, I want you to automatically record this meeting, it will automatically record it for you. Teams doesn't have that feature at the moment, but I did see online that there were various people going, why? So hopefully that will be coming in the future. So now I think, let me just check on what else am I talking about. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about on Teams, on Zoom even? Together mode, remote learning, Nearpod, Zoom call, tips for engaging, collaborative working. Now, okay, right. So I'm going to end this Zoom call. End meeting for all. By the way, do press end meeting for all, because if you just leave the meeting, then the kids can be still there, figuratively throwing things at each other. Right, so here I am on Teams, and I'll show you a few bits and bobs here. I just want to remind you, because a few people get burned with this, if you just press meet now up here, which you can do for a particular class. I'm here in the history department, which isn't a class, but for argument's sake. If you just do that, then it will work. And if you can do the same down here somewhere. Somewhere it says meet now, but I can never ever find it. No, that's Zoom. Wherever it is, there's another button that says meet now, but yeah, you can click meet. But if you just press meet now, everyone will be of equal power in the meeting, which means the students can mute you. Whereas if you schedule the meetings, and I showed this on my previous tutorial, so I'm not going to go through it in detail, but if you use the method of scheduling the meeting, you can set it up so that only you are the host of the meeting, and therefore the students can't mute you or kick each other out or any of that kind of stuff. So I would strongly recommend against just pressing the meet button on Teams for that reason. However, I'm going to press it because there's no students joining. Although Mrs. Stansfield is part of this team and technically could join and mute me, and that would make me sad. But nevertheless, here we are. So, was there anything else I was going to say about that? Right, so let's just go through the basics then. So here I am on Teams. Teams has been improved. So if you've upgraded your Teams, it used to be that you could only see 4 people at the same time, but now you can see 49 people at the same time, and I haven't got 49 friends, so I need to get more so I can fill up my screen. But that should be big enough for any class that you have, or even potentially a year group, depending on which year group you are. So that used to be the big difference between Zoom and Teams, is that you could see everyone at the same time, and now you can do that on both. Yay! As long as they're up to date. And the breakout rooms is still different between the two. But then the options, I've noticed in school that the options for calls are at the top of the screen in Teams, but on mine they're floating. I haven't yet used the brain power to work out if I can kind of move it around, but you can actually move this thing around. At least I thought you could. I've definitely moved it around before, but now it won't be moved around. I know. Whatever. Fine. But if you want to record it, you click more actions and you click start recording, and you press start recording and it starts recording. What's nice about Teams is that Teams, I think, automatically records into the team, which puts it on Microsoft Streams for you. So it doesn't go to your personal computer for that, and it puts it on Stream. And then, so in theory, students can find it later or whatever. You know when it's recording because it says here that Mr. Copy has this big kind of red flashing here. There is no way to automatically set it to automatically record. I'll overuse the word automatically at the moment. And you can stop recording it here. The meeting is being recorded. Are you sure you want to stop? I do. So therefore I have stopped. Teams also has some new stuff as well. Let me just go back to my OneNote, wherever it is. Alt tab for fun. So recording lectures, we've done that. Using together mode on Teams. Right, so Teams has also upgraded its camera powers. So if I click here and I click show background effects, now they're all competing for the same thing. You can put yourself wherever you want. If you click on a particular location and then click preview, you can see now that I am in a changing room for a swimming pool? Well, that's dodgy for a start, but you get the general principle. Okay, so let's go somewhere that's less appropriate, slightly more appropriate, so I can then click these things, and so now on a beach. So everyone's happy because we're learning history or politics on a beach. There's also various kind of coloured balls that you can kind of put there, which is unfortunate because it basically makes my head look like the third one of the balloons. But there you go. So that's quite cool, especially if you want to kind of hide your where you are, or you're somewhere that you don't really want kids to see your background. Also, you can I think you can even add your own. Yes, you see it says add new, so you can even put up your own. The kids do on occasion put pictures of their classmates up there. And you also need to be careful that the kids don't put a picture of themselves working hard and then sod off and sit in the garden for an hour. So just make sure that the kids are moving and breathing, and they aren't just like a repeated GIF going round and round. Damn, I said GIF. I always say GIF. It's a GIF, people, not a GIF. But these are pretty nice. And the rule I have in my class is that the kids can use backgrounds as long as they have one background the entire time. And if they change their background at all once the lesson has started, then they get in trouble, because otherwise you just find they just sit there the entire time kind of go, ooh, I can be on the moon. So I think you probably need a class policy, which is either no backgrounds at all, or once the lesson starts they have to stick with the background, or they're in trouble because they should be focusing. But it's also good for the kids as well. So if the kids are in their bedroom or something like that, then it's good that they kind of use these backgrounds to kind of hide it as well. Also, it gives the back of your head a nice blur, which is great. So that was that. And if you ever want to turn it off, you just click on the one that says nothing. Right, so the meeting mode. Meet now. Together mode, that's what it was. Together mode, using together mode in Teams. Okay, so this is a brand new thing, which is still in beta, but it's really cool, which basically does this. And I tried it with the Year 8s the other day. What it does is it takes all of your camera face heads things. Hang on, slideshow. Monitor, primary monitor, go. Right, so it takes all of the kind of the moving faces and puts it like in a classroom or a lecture theatre like that. And over the next couple of months, they're going to release a few more versions of this that has more things than just the lecture. But I tried it with the Year 8s on Friday. We were all in class, and so we just turned on our cameras in class so we could see each other anyway. But it put us all on here, and it was really cool, and it kind of felt a lot more like we were together. And yes, we then did immature things like kind of high-five each other virtually and throw things up and down, and some people got really close to the camera. So it's one of those things that you'll have to kind of police a little bit. But personally, I think it's pretty cool. And you know, one of the things we struggled with over lockdown was that feeling of being apart. So the more we can kind of feel together when we're apart, or to part as it's called, the better. And the way you get to it is you click. If you're at the top, you got the dot dots, or you got the dot dots here, and it appears here. Now I haven't got it, because I'm the only person in this call, because I am alone. So it's somewhere here, and it's called Together Mode, and it might say Together Mode Preview or something like that. Also, I said earlier that you can see 49 people all at the same time. When I initially started on, I could only see whatever it was, the usual 8. To get it bigger than 8, I again had to click this dot, and I had to click here, and there was something called Large Gallery, and I pressed that, and that then kind of adjusted it for me. But here's the other thing. So these are really cool. Make sure they're there, but it's independent from your device, from their device. So you have to tell them to turn on their together mode. They can't see yours unless you share your screen with them. So what you could do is go in here, turn on together mode, which would be here because you'd have more people in there. Then you could share your screen with them, and you could just share the screen, and then that would share the together mode on there. I assume. I haven't really played massively with that, but I'm assuming that would probably work. He says thinking live about it, but that would probably work. But anyway, they need to turn on their own together mode if they want their own together mode. But it's cute, it's cool. I'm sure they're going to carry on developing it, and it's a bit of fun, but it's also a nice way to feel together. So there you go. I've now unticked that for some reason, and then I'm going to tick it again. General sharing of ideas, I'm just going to tick it because we're not going to do that one now. Right, Nearpod. Okay, so in Nearpod, let me put myself back on the screen. So Nearpod is one of mine and one of Mrs. Cork's and one of Mrs. McNally's favourite ways to kind of teach interactively. It's basically, I've done some demo videos on it before, but it's basically a way of doing a PowerPoint interactively for the kids. And so the PowerPoint appears on their screen, and then you press next and it changes the slide on their screen as well. And then what you can do is you can then put interactive activities between the slides, which for remote learning is just brilliant. So what I would do is I would just start a call together on either Zoom or Teams, teach in Nearpod, the PowerPoint goes straight to them. They have to learn to go between the windows, but most of them can handle that. And then you have these interactive activities, and it just kind of collects the information kind of for you. So so that was great. There's a free version and a non-free version. So this is what my Nearpod kind of looks like. So I've got loads of lessons on here that I've been working on for, I don't know, a year or so. Although some of them look emptier than they used to. And then, so when you're about ready to teach, you click teach, and then it gives you these options. Live participation, which is what you would use in class. A student-paced one, which means they can go through on their own, but I think you need gold version for that. But then there's this middle option which says live plus Zoom, which is you lead the lesson while instructing with Zoom, and so you click on that button there, and then it's probably not going to work for me because I'm not currently doing a Nearpod lesson, but you click on it and it says each Zoom session includes a waiting room, and each link contains an embedded passcode for initial protection. So you can connect a Zoom meeting and the Nearpod code all at the same time, and then so you kind of click that and you kind of follow the instructions. If this is getting a little bit kind of complicated, then don't worry too much about it. But I more for those of you that use Nearpod a lot, I just wanted to kind of show you that the option is there. I think, to be honest, if I use Nearpod, I'll probably still have my lesson started in either Zoom or Teams, and then I'll kind of run the Nearpod separately. However, if I was in a class with students live and I had a student at home and I was going to use Nearpod, I might just press the Nearpod that has a Zoom call attached, because then the pupil can just kind of dial in with the Zoom one there. So I'll be honest, I haven't yet used that one, but I saw that it was there and I thought that's kind of cool. Let's tell people about it because they might want to go play. Done. Where's my mouse? It's not there. It's here. Right, tips for getting students to engage more with live lessons. Where's my face? It's probably nicer for you to see my face. I'm guessing, maybe not. You might be like, oh dear God, I've seen so much of his face. I don't know. Let's pretend you want to see my face, and I'll go with it. Right. So, tips for getting students to engage more in remote lessons. Let me just get this. Let me get this to one side so we can see this, and then we can see that. There we go. Beautiful. Right. By the way, that's always a handy little tip. If any of you haven't come across that before, if you drag a window over to one side, you can automatically kind of arrange your desktop like that, which is pretty cool. Right. So tips for getting students to engage more in remote lessons. I don't know if you guys found this, but I found this, especially at Key Stage 3, larger classes. They weren't talking to me. They weren't typing to me. They were just sitting in complete silence, and I was lecturing to the wall, and there was just no point in them being interactive. And so a few weeks into lockdown, I spoke to my year 8. It was year 8 especially. And I spoke to them and I said, unless you are going to engage with me, there is no point in us having a live lesson. I might as well just put it onto Firefly. And I said to each one of the classes, I said, you can either turn your cameras on, turn your microphones on, and we can have an interactive lesson, or you can leave them off, which you are entitled to do, and I will set the work on Firefly. What do you want to do? And I did a poll. If you don't know how to do a poll, ask me or play with it on Zoom. And they voted to say, yes, we want to have the interactive lessons. And they did. And once they did, it was like night and day. That, you know, we got the cameras on. They started engaging more. And what was really lovely is that a bunch of parents then emailed me afterwards, and they said, thank you so much for getting the cameras on, because it means that the kids are getting to see their classmates and the kids are engaging far more in the lessons. Because to be blunt, if you can see the kid, you can see if they're on their phone or they've left or they're not doing that. Yes, you can't see their screen, but if you can see them, it gives you a far better idea of what they are doing and how much they are engaging. And it also means it's a lot easier to ask them a question. Because I don't know if you've done that thing where you're kind of like, you know, Emily, what's the answer? And you can't see them, and then there's just awkward pause while you wait for them to unmute their microphone and answer, and you don't even know if they're there, let alone if they know how to unmute their microphone or whatever. So it really made a difference, and so hearing that from the parents was lovely. And then when I came back into school, I actually had a load of the students say to me that it was so much better getting the cameras on. So so how did I do it? So first of all, basically I told them, get the cameras on. And I was speaking to a couple of members of SLT the other day, and they said it's absolutely fine for you to have an expectation that their cameras will be on. Like, at the end of the day, we can't force them to have their camera on, but we can have an expectation. I did speak to a couple of other teachers the other day from other schools where they actually have a school policy that the students' camera should be on, so they will definitely engage. If they're worried about their background, then they could use that virtual background thing that you've got on Zoom or Teams. I mean, I think what I'll be doing with my classes is kind of saying, I expect you to have your cameras on. If your camera is off, then you need to contact me in advance and kind of tell me why. You know, dear Mr. Cox, my camera will be off because my mother is at home, or my brother is doing this or that, and that's fine. So so first of all, just set a general expectation that it will be on. If a student is off, then I often send them an email afterwards or ask them, can you turn it on? Is there a reason why you won't? You can kind of contact the parents and send them a polite email, something along the lines of, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, it's really important that your students engage, your daughter engages, and so we would love them to get their cameras on. Is this something you support and have an issue with?" We did do, Mrs. Kingston and I worked together to send out a kind of a permission form at the beginning of lockdown to say, do any parents wish to opt out from this? I can't remember exactly how it all finished up, because it was a long time ago. But basically, the parents can opt out from the camera policy, so I don't think we ended up with any students that opted out from it. Other things I did was, the students were quite shy at the beginning of lessons, so we did big countdowns. So we turned our cameras off and we kind of counted down from 10, and then we all turned it on, and that worked really well. Things like class high fives. I had a bunch of students that would just keep their cameras off until I was kind of like, okay, everyone, we're going to have a big class high five, and then you go 3, 2, 1, and you high five the camera, and of course they have to turn their cameras on if they want to do it. So that got things on. Getting them to hold up pieces of work worked really nicely. The breakout rooms was brilliant. I had a couple of students whose cameras were off, and I couldn't get their cameras on, and I was trying not to be too like, turn it on, But then when I put them into breakout rooms and then went in after about 5 minutes, the camera was on and they were kind of talking to their classmates, and they were kind of working. So that's good. They do seem to kind of be in a habit of kind of turning them off. So you can explicitly say to them, right, we're going to be watching this video now. You may turn your cameras off if you wish, but we're going to turn them on again afterwards. So you can have periods of the lesson where you have them on and periods of the lesson where you kind of have them off. But I would try and be explicit about it, because the students do seem to kind of like to kind of sneak them off if they can, and you don't want to be spending your entire lesson going, turn it back on again. So having those kind of expectations, a bit like a silent classroom, some people have a kind of like you can talk and then a silent classroom zone or something like that. You can have a camera zone and a non-camera zone. So that was good. What else have I written there? Collaborative working on Teams. I think Mr. Gibbs is going to show this a little bit, but one of the things I really liked about Teams and Nearpod is that you can get them working together. So if you go into Teams, a lot of you probably know this already by now, but you can make a class notebook. In fact, I'm not going to go through it on this one because there's just too much to talk about. But oh, I've lost my face. I've lost my face. There it is. You can go and you can make a notebook on Teams, and there's a collaboration space, and so you can make a collaboration space for a particular group, and they can go and work together on that page. And then you could put them into breakout rooms, and then they can work on that page together and put something together. And that's a good way of kind of getting them to engage as well. One of the things I did if it's a Word document, or if everyone is on a OneNote page at the same time, then I made a table. And then that was quite good because they could edit their table. But to be honest, if you want to have a collaboration board, Nearpod has a free collaboration board that's really good. And I think there's one called Padlet, which is a website where I think everyone can kind of type different things and it all kind of flies up on the screen at the same time and kind of ends up like a kind of a mind map board. And that's really good. So, but basically, interactive resources that work online are your friend when it comes to kind of remote learning. One of the ones I did a lot was, again, on the OneNote thing in Teams, is if you put the activity into Teams that they have to fill out, you can see it as they write it. Something on Firefly, they have to submit it before you can see it. On OneNote through Teams, you can see it as they do it. So in a way, you kind of know if they're not working because you'll know you can't be able to see it. Yes, you'll have the headache of the student that's like, I can't write on it, and I don't know why, and you'll be like, you're in the content library. But if you can win the kind of the technical war, then the benefit's worth it, because you can kind of see them as they're kind of going, and it's trying to recreate that class feeling as much as possible without kind of being in class. And I think with that brings me to the end of this session. I've probably been talking for a very long time, and I really hope that the recording is still going. Otherwise, I will be very sad. So there you go. I hope that was useful. If you've got any questions, send me an email or ask around in your department. If you've got any things that you know how to do that I haven't, then please tell me, because I always want to know how to do things better. So give me some hints and tips, and then I'll steal your tips and I will put them into my own session later. Or maybe even better, you could run your own session later involving that. That's my knee. I'm going to take that out of the shop because it's unnecessary. Right. Have a lovely evening.